Hello everybody, so today we are going to do our FCE class, okay? So FCE, take out the correct book. Please make sure it's reading and writing number 4. Alright, so which pages are we going to do today? We will do the ones with the lesson 5 on top. So 23, page 23 again, the introduction, very simple. Page 24 is our developing skills. So here we're just going to go through what we've talked about here very briefly, so it's still introduction, right? And then page 25, we'll try to see if what we've learned on 23 and 24 are we've based the understanding. Then we will do some multiple choices and analyze some text as well. And page 26, we will try to get some terms, all right, in tones of writing, and then try to analyze some text again. And lastly, on page 27, all right, on page 27, after trying to understand and doing a lot of reading, we will try ahead and go do some writing, all right? So we have to practice what we've learned today too. Okay, so page 23 to 27. All right, so on page 23, we have the introduction, right? So we have 4 paragraphs, and we will all read them together. It's the same here on the whiteboard, just the first part, okay? So I have no space to write all of the paragraph. So when I ask you to read paragraph 1, just refer to your book, all right, page 23. All right, so before we answer the questions, let's try to read the paragraphs on page 23, okay? So the first one over here. What is understanding implication, okay? Implication, sorry, I spelled it wrong. I wrote amplify. So let me try to write it down again. So implications, all right? Implications, I-M-P-L-I-C-A-T-I-O-N-S, implications, all right? So what does the word implication mean, implication? All right, it comes from the word imply, okay? Imply or the implied, all right? So we have to understand what this means because it can help us write more colorful, okay? Maybe if you want to give some pieces of information that you don't want to show too much or use it so much, we can use implications, all right? So these 2 words here, all right, so they're the same words just in the simple present and the simple past tense, right? So imply, what do you think imply means, right? You could spend some time reading the first paragraph and then let me know if you have any ideas, okay? So before I tell you what it means, let's try to read the first paragraph together, okay? So some things are not stated clearly in a text. However, they might or they may be implied, okay? For example, if a writer says, prison taught me a lot, okay? Prison taught me a lot. We can reasonably assume, okay? Assume, that's a word for you, that the writer was convicted of murder or a crime, even though it's not explicit. Understanding implications means seeing what is behind the things writers say. Seeing the things behind what the writers say or write. All right? So, imply, all right? Let me use a blue pen so that you can see the differences. Imply, okay? This means the meaning without being obvious, okay? I'll write OBV, okay? So we're trying to give a piece of information or some meaning to our sentences without being too obvious, okay? Obvious means from the get-go. Once you look at it, you know exactly what it means, right? But sometimes when an information is implied, right, it can have a kind of vague structure to it, and we might not understand it, but we can infer, we can try to understand, right? So let's try to look at this sentence, right? So the example they gave you in quotations, right? Prison taught me a lot. Prison taught me a lot. And then, because we have this sentence, we can assume. What does this word mean, assume? Assume. Right. To think that because this happened, so of course he must be a prisoner, right? Or he must be a criminal. So assume means to presuppose, right? We don't know for sure, but we can say or we can think that it is true. All right, so it's not certain. So prison taught me a lot. Why? Maybe because he was could be a guard, right? A prison guard, or a policeman, right? But we're trying to assume that prison taught him a lot of things, or her a lot of things, because he or she was a prisoner, or had committed a crime, or convicted a crime, okay? So, you see here, the two sentences are quite different, right? Prison taught me a lot versus I learned a lot when I was in prison for stealing jewelry, or for hitting someone with my car, right? So this one is for sure. For sure, we know why they were in prison, because they convicted murder. This one we have to guess, maybe because they convicted crimes, right? So this over here is the explicit, right? Hold on. So we have explicit and implicit. I will go to it later. So for now, let's just focus on this part, okay? So for question number 1, we've read the paragraph, right? So what should it be? Even though it's not explicit, understanding implications means seeing what is behind the things the writers write. Seeing behind what the writers write or say. So number 1, when something is implied, it isn't stated explicitly in a text, right? Implicit, explicit. Or B, it is because the writer is trying to hide something. Alright, so now we have the word explicitly, from the word explicit. E-X-P-L-I-C-I-T. And then we have the opposite, implicit. I-M-P-L-I-C-I-T. Explicit, implicit, right? Very easy to remember, X and imp, alright? So what do these two words mean? Explicit, implicit, what do they mean? Right, when we have an implicit text, right, we know for sure that the information is true, or that we can say that it is true. For example, this one will be implicit because we have the actual statement, I was in prison for committing a crime, right? So I learned a lot when I was in prison for committing a crime. Or explicit, what is explicit? Explicit is the implied, right? Implied. What we've talked about, if we have to read the text and see what's behind it, it is an explicit. All right, so when something is implied, right? Should it be A or B? Right, it is A, right? Not necessarily explicit, okay? Understood? All right, number 2, paragraph 2. Why is understanding implication important? Why is understanding implications important? Why, right? Let's read the paragraphs together. Writers expect that we will understand some things without being told explicitly. We don't recognize and understand things that are implied. We only understand, we only understand parts of the text and we might miss something important. Alright, so writers expect us to understand. Why? What does he expect us to understand? Right, because the context of the text, right? For example, if you are reading a report on global warming, okay, let's say we're reading a report on global warming, right? We will expect to read things about the ice melting, the temperature rising, okay? So the writer might not need to explain everything because we know from the context what they are writing about, right? So if they write implicitly, okay, or explicitly, they expect us to understand what they mean, okay? So number 2, if you don't understand implications, you might A, not understand something stated explicitly, or B, miss an important piece of information. miss an important piece of information. All right, so what do you think is the correct answer there if we don't understand implication? It should be B, okay? B, right? So not understand something stated explicitly, right? Explicitly, right? We already know what explicitly means. Explicit. Oh, sorry, I mixed it up a while ago. Explicit is for sure, right? And then we have implicit. Which will match the implied. Okay? Alright, so it should be B. What about number 3? Read a text carefully and ask yourself questions about it. If what the writer says is true, what else must logically be true? So logically, right? So of course, it's going to be true. What does the writer want me to understand, even though he or she hasn't said it explicitly? Hasn't said it for sure for me to understand 100%, right? So what is being implied here, right? What is the implicit meaning, right? What are they trying to say? What do I have to find out? Okay, they consider these things as you read. Then consider these things as you read the rest of the text and check your understanding against both, okay? Explicit and implicit information. So a text can't always be 100% implicit, okay? Otherwise, we'll have to just guess the whole time. So it is always a mixture of explicit and implicit, okay? So maybe a topic sentence is explicit, right? It's for sure giving you the introduction to a piece of information. And then supporting sentences can be mix of explicit and implicit, right? So for example, climate change is a global phenomenon happening all around the globe. And then another supporting sentence that is explicit can be statistics, okay? Statistics. These number of countries have been experiencing a rise in temperature, and then given implicit information like could it be because of human manufacturing, okay? So what does that mean? It means because we're using more plastics, we're using more factory-made products, right? So explicit and implicit together, all right? So we have to analyze both, right? Both, what goes against each other, the for sure part and the implied part. All right, so what should it be? As you read, you need to keep checking that A, you understand what is being implied or what has been implied, or B, any new information is in fact true. Right, A, right? It should be you understand what is being implied. So sometimes when we read books or even novels, right? Literature, maybe we read Pride and Prejudice or Romeo and Juliet, and we have implicit conversations or dialogue between the two or three characters or even more. And we find ourselves not understanding, okay? Why is that? Because maybe in the sentences that were written by the author, right? These sentences have meanings behind them, and we don't really try to analyze, we just read them through. That's why it's important to go back at least once and read it once more to see if we miss any implicit meaning, okay? So it should be A. You understand what has been implied, okay? All right, number 4, all right? So how is this important in our test, okay? So it is important in our test, parts 5, 6, and 7, okay? In part 5, you may be asked, okay, about specific questions about things that are implied in a text. So this means, for example, if I have a piece of text here, find out which ones are implicit, okay, implicit sentences, and what do they imply, all right? And then in part 6, right, for part 6, there are removed sentences, and you have to put them together, connected. Perhaps it's the explicit information, and then some implicit, and you have to match them, all right? And then for part 7, you may need to understand the attitude or opinion. So what does attitude or opinion of writer mean? That means the tone, the style, okay? So remember we learned about style, texture in how you write, right? We have the passive, we have the active, but we also have some more things. They're called tones, which I will talk about later. Okay, so number 4, understanding implications is used for understanding, right? A, what is implied in questions in part 5. Or B, attitude and opinion in part 7. Right, B, right? Attitude and opinions, which we call tones, right? Sometimes we call them tones, attitudes, alright? Okay, so check your answers. 1 should be A, 2 should be B, 3 should be A, and 4 should be B. Now I mixed up, I mixed them up a while ago. So explicit, remember, explicit means the piece of information that we can say for sure is there, okay, for sure. Implicit means we have to kind of look behind the words, look behind the surface meaning, and we have to find the implied, what is being implied, okay? Alright, so let's turn the page over to page 24. Alright, so we have 3 parts here, Alright, well 4 if you count the get started, the introduction, okay? So let's try to do them all together. For get started, let's try to look at the picture on top of your book over here, right? A man who is, what does it look like? He's in a prison cell, right? So he's in jail or in prison, all right? And he's thinking deeply about something. Perhaps he's done something wrong, right? So the questions in this prompts are, okay? So just give me some ideas, all right? Throw any ideas out and write them down on the side, all right? So, why might this man be in this situation? So why is this man in this situation, right? We can think of many things, right? Just try to write down anything quickly as you can. Why might this man be in this situation? All right. The second one, how do you think he might be feeling? Okay, so his emotions, how is he feeling right now? Right? If you can't think of how he's feeling, maybe think this is you, right? And you are in prison. Right? Knock on wood, that doesn't happen, but what happens or what do you feel if you are? Okay? And then number 3, what do you think his typical day is like? Okay? Typical day means usual, okay? So what would his usual day be like? Would it always be like this? Right? Alright, so I'll give you around 30 seconds. Just jot down anything. 1 words are okay. Just write down notes. Why is this man in this situation? How does he feel? And what is his typical day like? His typical day, his usual day. Okay. Alright, so maybe we can say he's committed, right? Committed. C-O-M-M-I-T. Committed a crime. Right? Crime, we know that means something against the law. Committed means to do, right? To do and push forward with it. So to commit means you are really going to do something, right? He committed a crime, okay? How do you think he might feel? How do you think he might feel? We can say he might be regretful. Regretful. R-E-G-R-E-T-F-U-L. Regretful. What does the word regretful mean? When you try and do something, when you committed to something, and then you want to take it back, right? When you say, I did something, but I actually don't want to do it, right? I wish I hadn't done it. So it's regretful. You regret. So he might be regretful, or he might be scared. Or he might be, what else? Disappointed, right? Alright, so he could be feeling many things, right? It's up to you. And what would his typical day be like? Right? You can write down typical day outside, right, of what's happening now. So maybe you can say his typical day is having breakfast with his family, right? And then going to work and then having lunch with his coworkers. But now he can't have that. So his typical day in the prison would be waking up 5:30 in the morning and then doing exercise, and then after that going back to his prison cell, staying there for 4 hours, and then only going out until lunchtime. So any ideas, right? Any ideas would be okay. Typical, the keyword here is typical. It means usual. Usual, all right? All right, so let's move on to developing our vocabulary, okay? So part 1 of page 24. All right, so I have no space to write down all the vocabularies, okay? So just read through them together from 1 to 6 and then A to F as well, okay? So number 1 is crime. Number 1 is crime. We know what crime means, right? Something that is against the law. Something that we do that is against the law. That is crime. 2, hardened. Hardened. H-A-R-D-E-N-E-D. Hardened. Right? Perhaps you know the word softened, right? When ice cream stays out, right, in the sun, it softens up, right? That means it becomes soft. So hardened means becomes hard, okay? But not hard like a rock, okay? This is a kind of personality. Hardened, right? He had become hardened, okay? Or he hardened. Number 3, justice. Justice, right? So something against society would be injustice, right? So what does justice mean if injustice means something against, the opposite, right? What does justice mean? Right, justice means when something is right, okay? Or you make something right, right? If there's something wrong, you try to do something right to fix it, right? So that's kind of like justice, all right? Number 4, life. Life, we already know what life means. 5, minor, okay? Minor means small, okay? This can mean as like a small person, right? As a young child, a minor, or a small thing, okay? A minor mistake, okay? And then number 6, solitary. Solitary. Solitary, okay? S-O-L-I-T. Alright, when we see words that have this in front, okay? Solitary, solitude, okay? This usually means solo, okay? Alone. Okay? Solitude, solitary, right? This usually means solo, alright? But there is no words on its own, no such word solit, okay? It has to have words in front. So solitary, solitude, that means alone or solo, okay? Alone or solo, okay? And then we have A to F, confinement, confinement. Confinement means isolation. Put you only into somewhere. For example, I have a piece of bread that is chocolate, and then I have other bread that are strawberry, all right? And I want to put the chocolate on its own, right? So you confine the piece of chocolate bread on its own, right? You segregate, you separate, okay? Confinement, separate. B, criminal, criminal, criminal. We already know someone who commits crime, right? A criminal. If a teacher, right, teaches, right, and a criminal commits crime, okay? C, offense, offense. Now, see that there is C-E, not S-E, okay? Offense, something offense, all right? So criminal offense, right? So they've done something wrong. D, rate, rate, okay? So rate means how big, how small, right? The average. That's what rate means, the average. E, sentence, okay? Now this doesn't mean like sentence, like you write a sentence, okay? Sentence means you put something to someone or something, okay? So I sentence you to solitary confinement, okay? So I sentence you, I put you to segregation, I will separate you from your friends, okay? F, system. We already know what system means, right? Very simple. System, how things work. There's a structure, right? So 1 and then 2 and then 3. That's a system that we always use, cardinal rule, all right? Okay, so number 1, crime what? Should it be crime confinement? Is there such a phrase, crime confinement? Crime criminal, right? This is quite, what's the term? Redundant, right? Repetitively. Crime criminal. That doesn't make sense, right? Crime offense, right? It might work, but offense already means doing something bad, right? So crime, doing something bad, an offense doing something bad, it's also redundant again. Crime rate, right? That means the average of crime in one area. Is it high or is it low? Crime sentence, right? Is that a phrase? Crime sentence. Crime system, right? The system of crime, how to do crime. All right, so what do you think? Right, it's crime rate, right? So we always hear maybe in the news, right? Like the city of or the Chicago, right? Chicago in America has the highest crime rate in the world, maybe, right? In the Western world. So crime rate means how often is the crime being done, right? Is there a big average, right, or a small? All right, so D, crime rate. 2, hardened what? What can become hard, right? Hardened, right? Is it a hardened confinement, hardened criminal, hardened offense, hardened sentence, hardened system? Right, so noun, right? Remember, I talked about like ice cream. It's softened up, right? Or a someone who is always very strong, but then something bad happens, so they've softened up. So it should be B, right? A hardened criminal, right? Hardened criminal, no chance of being good, right? Hardened. All right, number 3, justice, confinement, justice, offense, right? Those two don't make sense. Justice and offense. So what should it be? Justice sentence? Right, justice system, okay? Justice system. So you go to court, right? Why? Because the justice system is like that, right? If you commit a crime, you will go to jail, and then after going to jail, if you want to appeal to the court, you can say, I did something bad because maybe I was trying to protect myself, so you go to the court, right? So that is a justice system, right? You have to prove your innocence. Okay, life what? Right, life sentence, okay? So maybe let me try to explain what that means, life sentence, okay? So life sentence means, right, they put something on your life, right? What will they put something on your life if you're a criminal? They put years on your life. What does that mean? They put you in jail for your whole life. So life sentence means for your whole life, okay? They will put that sentence on you. So you have to stay in jail for your whole life. Now some criminals, they can appeal. After spending 5 years in jail, okay, they might appeal and say, I've learned, I've changed, and so if I can prove that, I can be set free, right? But sometimes if they are very brutal, then they have to stay for their whole lives. Okay, what about C, minor? That means small, right? So minor, A, confinement, minor separation, or minor offense, minor mistake. Right, a minor offense, right? Minor offense. For example, right, murdering someone versus stealing some chocolates, right? Which one is a minor offense there? Right, stealing chocolates is a minor offense, right? But murdering someone is a what's the right term that they use in the legal system? Right, it's a what's the right term? A grave offense. Okay, grave, Grave. That means very large, okay? Grave. All right, and last one, solitary, okay? So solo confinement, on your own, okay? Confinement means to take something away or put something on its own. So they take yourself, only you, into one place. So you have no one around you. You cannot hear anybody or talk to anyone, right? That'll make you go crazy. All right, so 1 to 6, we've done them, okay? 1 is D, B, F, E, C, and A, all right? So check your answers, All right, so let's go to part 2. So we write down the words into the sentences. So we have 5, all right, and then we have 5 here too. Let me just go around the box real quick. So charge, right? Can you try and guess what charge means here? Now remember, the context is prison, right, or justice system. So what does charge mean? If they're like charging your battery, charging like attack, right? Okay, so this word charge means to find someone, F-I-N-E, to find someone. For example, okay, if I was walking on the street, and then it was red light, and then I still crossed the street, right? I crossed the street. So I was jaywalking, right? I was jaywalking. Red light, walking across the street, okay? So if there was a police who saw me do that, they can charge me some money. I'm not sure if it's 2,500 Hong Kong dollars, I think. So they can charge me. They can give me a ticket and say you have to go to the court and you have to pay 2,500 and see if that's enough, all right? Or they give you a fine. They charge you a fine, okay? So fine is the what you have to do. Charge means they put on you as well, okay? So they charge. Okay. Second one, commit means to do for sure, right? To do, all right? So you're very sure I'm going to do it, so you commit, right? Commit is not always bad, right? But we always hear it we pair it with commit a crime, okay? So that's bad. Commit suicide, right? That's also bad, but you can commit, right? Commit can also be a positive word, like I commit to my studies, right? I for sure will study very hard. I commit to my family, right? I will do everything for my family. All right, so convict. Convict. Now, we can read this word two ways, okay? But they have different meaning. There is convict. Convict. So the stress is on O. Convict. Convict. If we read it as convict, it will mean the person, a noun, okay? A person, a convict, someone who has done crime, a convict. But if we do the verb, okay, the action, convict, convict, the stress is in I, convict. Convict, the person, and convict, the verb, okay? So what does convict mean? Right, can't put the title on her, right? So if someone is a criminal, if I am a criminal, right? So let's pretend I'm a criminal. I have to go to the court, okay? And they have to either convict me of a crime, right? Convict me a criminal, or convict me of a crime, or prove that I'm innocent, okay? So convict means to give the title, okay? To deem someone as something, either innocent or not, okay? And then fines, okay? Fines. How do I explain this? So fines, right? So we know fines, the simple meaning is to find something, right? We're searching for something. Now in the judiciary system, all right, in the terms of the judicial system, fines means after voting, right? So they have voted you, right? Or votes. All right. What does this mean? The jury, J-U-R-Y. These are the people who will vote if you are guilty or innocent. Okay. So if after they voted and they find you guilty, then you will go to jail. Okay. So find means the whole vote. Okay. And this is their conclusion. All right. And then sentence. Okay. Sentence. We talked about it in part 1, right? Letter E. Sentence. Right. To give someone something. Right, in the sense that you are going to be sentenced to prison, right? Or sentenced for how long, right? Sentence for a year, sentence for life, okay? All right, so now let's try to read through the sentences and see which one matches the best, okay? So number 1, if the jury blanks you guilty, the judge will send you to prison. All right, jury, remember, these are the people that vote. So if the jury voted that you are guilty, right? If they find you that you are guilty, if the jury finds. Now the jury, right? Why is it singular, the jury, right? Because it's a group of people, right? A group of people, just one group of people who will vote if you are guilty or not. Finds. All right. Nobody should be able to blank a crime without facing the consequences. Commit, right? Nobody should be able to commit a crime, do a crime without facing legal consequences. That means actions, okay? Consequences means what you do, something will happen, okay? So there's always a consequence. All right, number 3, the police didn't blank him with anything as they had no proof. Charge, right? Fine. They didn't charge him anything as they had no proof. That means maybe the crime was done very well, or actually he wasn't a criminal at all. Next one, the jury can't blank her of murder. She wasn't in the country at that time. sentence her of murder or convict her of murder. Remember, sentence means to put someone somewhere or to give someone something for the long periods of time. So this one is tied to time. Convict means just to convict them of a murder or not, or a crime. Alright, so it should be convict. So when someone is convicted of a crime, they have become a convict, okay? If someone is convicted of a crime, they are now a convict. And lastly, of course, sentence them to 6 months, right? Again, sentence. There is a tie with time, okay? Alright, so check your answers. Number 1, fines. Number 2, commit. Number 3, charge. Number 4, convict. Number 5, sentence. Remember, convict, verb, convict, the noun, okay? Alright, number 3, guilty verdict for businessmen. Okay, so verdict. V-E-R-D-I-C-T, verdict. What does this mean? Guilty verdict. Right, result regarding the jury. The jury's fined, okay? So the result, from who? From the jury who votes for them, okay? So guilty verdict, right? That means a guilty result for the businessman. That means they've deemed him as a criminal. Alright? So now we have to underline the correct words, okay? So number 1 is jury or judge. Number 2 is lawyers or cellmates. Cellmates means prison cell, someone you stay with together. Number 3, bribery or shoplifting. Bribery means to bribe someone. For example, if you don't know what bribery means, you try to offer someone something so that they will do something bad for you, okay? Or something they don't want or won't usually do for you. For example, if I have to go to the school, or I have to go to school, but there is a line for the bus, a really long line. So you can ask maybe the bus driver, you bribe the bus driver, you say, I'll give you extra $10 if you make me go in front of the line, right? And that you can't do that. So you're bribing someone. Number 4, bars or walls. Okay, bars are like the prison bars, okay? The pieces of steel or metal that help you not get out of prison. And walls, right? Prison walls just means walls. Sentence or punishment. For 5, sentence or punishment. And 6 is prison, the place, or imprisonment, to put someone in prison, okay? Imprisonment. Alright, number 1, the judge or jury in the case of businessman Ken Riddle have reached a guilty verdict. Okay, so they've reached a guilty result for him, or a guilty fine. So it should be jury, right? The jury, not the judge, right? Not the judge. The jury will vote for him, not the judge. The judge is just there to lay out all the things and ask questions, right? Alright, they were not convinced by the lawyer's or cellmate's argument that his client was not guilty of bribery or shoplifting, and that the money he gave to a government official was in the form of a loan. Okay, the money you give someone, right? So that's bribe. So we know number 3 is bribery. Very easy, right? Bribery. Now what about number 2? Lawyers or cellmates argument. Who will argue for you in the court if you become a criminal, right? The lawyer, of course. So lawyers. Lawyers. L-A-W-Y-E-R apostrophe S. Lawyers. Alright, let's continue onwards. Judge Margaret Reynolds ruled that the Canadian businessman should stay behind bars, should stay behind walls. Right? What does that mean? Behind. Try to imagine a prison. Where will the criminal stay? Behind bars, right? So it should be bars. Behind bars. Okay? Behind bars. Alright? Until she was ready to pass sentence or punishment next week. Right, sentence, right? To pass sentence. To see how long he should stay in prison. To pass sentence. She warned Ruddle that in light of seriousness of the offense, he should expect a term of prison or imprisonment. Imprisonment. He should expect a term of being in jail, right? Imprisonment. Imprisonment, of being in jail or in prison. Okay? Alright. So number 1 is jury. Number 2, lawyers. Number 3, bribery, to bribe someone. Number 4, bars, prison bars, right? Number 5, sentence. And number 6, imprisonment. Imprisonment, to be in jail or in prison. Alright, let's move on to the next page, right? So page 25, okay, we have part 1. Okay, so developing our reading skills. So we have to do multiple choices. And then number 2, we have to match them. And then number 3 is reading and trying to see what is the implied, okay? So now we're going for sure back to the implicit and explicit, right, sentences. So before we do that, let us talk about the part 1. So read the sentences and tick what is implied. The explicit meaning, right? The meaning that we have to look behind. We have to find for it. Again, if you don't understand, you can go back to page 23 and look at the first paragraph. Prison taught me a lot. That is an implicit information. We don't know if he's a prisoner, if he's a criminal, or if he's a police, but we can assume that he is a prisoner, because why else would someone learn a lot in prison, right? Because they've learned to actually become good in life or better people. Okay? So let's try to do 1, 2, 3 together, and then I'll let you have a minute maybe to do 4 and 5, all right, just to practice by yourself. So number 1, let's read the sentence, okay? The judge sentenced him to life imprisonment. That means for whole life he will stay in prison, right? So the judge sentenced him to life imprisonment. A, he had been found guilty of a serious crime, right? Opposite of minor. Or B, he was unfairly treated by the judge. Alright, what is the implied meaning here? The judge sentenced him to life imprisonment. Alright, what are we trying to find out? Is it because he was unfairly treated by the judge? That's why the judge just feel like, because you shoplifted, you stole a piece of chocolate, I will put you to life forever, in prison forever. No, it should be A, right? We could assume, we could think that he did something or she did something very serious, right? A serious crime, a grave crime, right? Alright, so that is what we mean by implied. We have to look behind the words or try to see what the writer is writing about. Number 2, most prisoners are keen to learn new skills in prison. Most prisoners are keen, wanting to learn new skills in prison. Why? Why are they learning new skills? A, many prisoners find good jobs on release from prison, or some prisoners have no interest in improving themselves. What do you think? Right, it should be A, right? Most prisoners find good jobs on release from prison. So they try to learn new skills because, right, after the sentence that they've served, maybe they have a 2-year sentence, right? And they are only 18 years old and they went to prison. Now, right, you have to study DSE and then have a college degree or university degree, but if you go to prison, you won't have that. So they study, right, new skills so that after they serve their sentence, they can work outside, okay? Number 3, while in prison, Keith learned to stand up for himself. What does stand up for himself? Does it just mean sit down, stand up? No, right? That means if someone tries to threaten you, you try to fight back in a way that you put yourself higher, okay? For example, if there's a bully who keeps pushing you, you go up to them and you stand up to yourself and you say, or stand up to them and you say, it's not right for you to push me, okay? If you do that again, then I might report you, okay? So what should it be? People in prison tried to threaten Keith, or people in prison tried to teach Keith things. Why would he need to stand up for himself, right? Is it because people teach him, or someone was threatening him? Right, it should be A, right? Because someone was threatening him, so he had to learn how to stand up for himself. Alright, so part 4 and 5, number 4 and 5, can you do it by yourself? I'll give you 30 seconds, okay? $30 seconds. Okay, so a 10-year sentence is excessive for a crime such as shoplifting. Excessive means it's too much, right? So 10-year sentence, that means to stay in jail for 10 years, is too much for a crime such as stealing. So the punishment should fit the crime, or you shouldn't go to jail for shoplifting. What do you think is the meaning here? Obviously it's not B, right? If you shoplift, you're still making a crime. So if you stole a piece of really expensive jewelry, maybe 5 million, right? Or $5 million ring, you should have to go to jail, right? You should go to jail. But not for 10 years, because that's too long, okay? So a 10-year sentence, right, is excessive. So for you to have 10 years to spend in jail, the crime should be fit to the punishment, right? It should be equal. All right, number 5, Olivia found the first few months inside the worst. What do you think that means? Right, it should be B. B. She got used to it afterwards, right? That means just pay attention to found the first few months. That means afterwards, after the first few months, she probably got used to it, okay? So again, the thesis, the implied, okay? So for part 2 and 3, we will do just one question together, okay? For both parts, and then we will do I'll give you as homework for these parts. These parts will be done as homework for you, so that you can have some exercises, okay? So you won't forget what you've learned today. All right. So these will be given to you as homework, okay? All right. So let's go to 2, okay? So for 2, match the sentences with what they imply from A to E, okay? Very easy. So this was his 10th offense. 10th time making something or doing a crime. But the first time he had spent any time behind bars. So this is the first time he spent his sentence in jail, even if he has done 10 crimes, okay? So what should that be? A, B, C, D, E. A, the writer has been in prison. No, right? He hasn't been in prison. Ex-convicts very often end up back in prison. He hasn't been in prison. C, the justice system is soft on offenders, right? Which one? Right, it is C. The justice system is soft on offenders, right? They always give him a chance, right? They always give him a chance to stay free, okay? And then these parts are for homework, okay? These parts. Go home and do them. Right? Very easy. Just read the prompt and then match with A, B, C, D, E. Alright, let's move on to part 3. Read the paragraph and tick which are implied. Implied, okay? Which are implied. Alright, so let's try and just read the paragraph quickly. The door closed behind him and Reeves was left alone. He looked at the cell, finding it much as he had expected from watching TV. Expected from watching TV, that means he's never been there. So number 1, Reeves had never been to prison before. Is that what they are trying to imply in the first line? He looked at the cell, finding it much as he had expected from watching TV. Yes, right, so it is implied. So you put a tick. That's what they're trying to say. He hasn't been to prison before because he's only seen it in TV, right? All right, so 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I'll give it to you as homework. Very easy, just put a tick. All right, so let's move on to the next page, all right? So page 26. All right, so here on page 26, right, match the sentence with the tone of the writer, okay? So match the sentence with the tone of the writer, page 26, right? We have a box. All right, we have a box over here, right? Same as your book. So we have 5 words, right? Angry, humorous, regretful, sad, sarcastic. Again, these are the tones of the writer, the attitude and opinions, okay? So angry, we know what that means, right? Just angry. Humorous, in a funny way, jokingly, right? Jokingly. Regretful, right? You've done something, but you wish you hadn't done it, right? You did something, but now you're wishing, oh, I should have not done it, right? Number 4, sad, very easy. Number 5, sarcastic, right? Irony, right? In an ironic tone. For example, ironic. How do we... Okay, ironic, alright? So I planned my wedding in December because I know there's going to be snow and I want my wedding to be around snow. but instead it was raining, right? And it never rains in December. We call that irony. It is so ironic, right? So we're trying to be sarcastic with our tone. So, for example, if that happened in my wedding, it started raining when I wanted snow, someone will tell me in a sarcastic tone, "Wow, the snow is so nice today," right? Even though there's no snow. All right? So let's try to answer them. All right? Let's answer 2 together. Number 1, I suppose what passed as necessities in prison today are ensuite showers. Right? That means the room has its own shower. Internet access, color TVs in every cell, and a weekly visit from the prison barber. What kind of tone is that? Right? Necessities, the needs. So the needs today in the prison are showers inside the room, and have free internet access, and TV with color, and someone will visit your cell to cut your hair every week. Are prisons that nice? Alright, prisons are usually very sad. So what kind of tone is that? Is it trying to be funny? No, right? It's not trying to be funny. It's trying to be sarcastic. Right? For example, if someone cooks you a meal and the meal tastes really bad, and then you want to try to be sarcastic, you say, this is really delicious, even though it's not, right? Alright, let's skip number 2. I'll give number 2 for you as homework. Let's go to number 3. Alright, the prisoners had made Christmas presents for their kids, and one of them dressed as Santa Claus and distributed the presents. After he had finished playing his role, he waved goodbye to the guards and headed towards the visitors' exit. Right? He waved towards the guards and headed towards the visitors' exit. That means he's trying to leave, right? Leave prison. So that is jokingly, right? A humorous attitude or tone. Humorous. Trying to be funny. Alright, so 2 and 4, I'll leave this as homework as well. Alright, 2 and 4, I'll leave you guys as homework. So again, the tone of the writer, okay? So we've used humorous, we've used sarcastic. So now you have 2 left. So one of them are not to be used. One of them is not to be used. Alright, let's move on to part 5. Okay, part 5. Read the sentences from here, 4, and then tick what is implied. Let's try to do all together, okay? So, number 1, right? The sentence from number 1 about the prison cell having TVs, someone to visit to cut your hair, your own shower, right? What is trying to be implied? A, prisoners are treated too easily, or B, prisoners are treated too harshly. Right, that means prisoners are being treated too easily, right? So now they give them all they need, right? So in prison, sometimes they have cell phones now, they have their own microwave, they have their own refrigerator, right? But they're not supposed to be living a comfortable life, right? They're serving their sentences for the crimes that they've committed. Number 2, let's read the sentence. What a disgrace that we feel it is acceptable to put people in solitary confinement for weeks on end. That means to put them on their own for weeks, okay? How exactly are such inhuman, right? Against human nature. Conditions meant to make anyone useful members of society, right? So someone is complaining, right? They're complaining, so obviously they're angry, all right? So what does that mean? Is it A, people should not be kept in solitary confinement for as long as they are? Or B, we must make sure solitary confinement is never used in prisons? Right, it should be A, right? So we can use them as punishments, but not for weeks on end, not for week after week, okay? Maybe for a few days, maybe for a day or 2, but not for almost a month, right? Alright, let's move on. Number 3, right? We talked about it already. Someone trying to escape prison, right? Very funny, humorous, okay? So, A, a prisoner played a joke, or a prisoner tried to escape? Right, a prisoner tried to escape. Played a joke, right? So a very humorous attempt, jokingly, right? Jokingly. All right, number 4, right? I wish I had tried to reach my son sooner. By the time I got in touch, he was so angry and resentful that he hardly wanted to listen. Resentful, that means you have hatred towards someone, you don't like them, right? So it should be A, the writer and his son have a good relationship, or B, the writer and his son have a bad relationship. So what can we imply from this sentence? I tried to reach my son, but when I actually reach him, he hates me. So is it good or bad? Bad relationship, right? So you see what I mean by implied, right? The explicit or the implicit, right? So all of these are implicit sentences. We have to guess the meaning behind the sentence. All right, part 6, we have to check whether it's explicit or implicit. Explicit or implicit, okay? Explicit for sure, implicit we have to see the implied. All right, so let's try to read the paragraphs. Number 1, the main problem with prison is boredom. You get bored easily. I should know, I've spent enough time behind bars. The worst of it is when you are young, because you're so full of energy. Half of the trouble I got into was just the result of working off the energy I had built up in me from sitting in a cell 23 hours a day. The other half was pure stupidity and stubbornness. That means because he has a lot of energy and he always spends 23 hours of every day in his prison, in the prison cell, and only 1 hour to go around the prison, right? So should it be A, right? What is A? The writer has spent many years in prison. Is that an explicit, for sure we know, or implicit? Explicit, right? We know that it's explicit. How do we know this, right? He says it in paragraph 1, line number, the first line actually, the last part of the sentence. I've spent enough time behind bars. That means he has spent a lot of time in prison. B, the writer was a youth when he first went to prison. The writer was young when he first went to prison. Is that explicit or implicit? The worst of it is when you're young because you're so full of energy. Half of the trouble I got into. Did he say he was young? No, right? He didn't say he was young, but he first opened up with, it is worse when you were young, and then half of the trouble I got into. So it's implicitly saying he was young, right? Implicit. He was young when he went into the prison, right? But he didn't say I was young when I went to prison. All right, let's move on. Number 2, right? A and B. Almost every writer who talks about their experience in prison makes some reference to the sky. Okay, that means using the words that we would describe the sky, we would also use it to describe prison or their experiences. It is usually blue, infinite. Okay, blue, and then goes on. Sometimes a bird flies up there and this pulls hardest on the prisoner's heartstrings, right? This means it plays on the prisoner's emotions. No free man attaches quite so much significance to such an everyday sight, right? So A, the sky stands a symbol of freedom to all prisoners. Right, it should be implicit, right? He doesn't say exactly that the sky means freedom, right? But he said that make some reference to the sky, and then he goes on to say the bird flies up into the sky as a prisoner's heartstring, like plays on their emotions, right? So it's implicit. There are a number of people who have written about their time in jail. Almost every writer who talks about their experience in prison, so it's E, right? We know for sure that there are writers talking about their jail experience. Number 3, I visited many prisons in my time and spoken to many prisoners. What struck me for the most part was how little of what they did was their fault, so they might be innocent. They had a bad upbringing, so they were raised badly. The teachers at school failed them. The police were always out to get them. Some even blamed God, okay? Often they were completely innocent and wanted me to help them to get out. But even those who admitted they were guilty as charged still felt they deserved to be free. So just talking about something wrong with the system, okay? So A, the information the writer has about prisoners was often gained from first hand. Yes, first hand, he visited them, right? So in the first line he said he visited the prisons. B, the writer has very little sympathy for the people he has met in prison. What do you think? Right, implicit, okay? Implicit. So the ones that have committed crime, right? He tried to say it in a sarcastic tone. But even those who admitted they were guilty still felt like they had to be free. Okay? So, explicit, implicit, right? For sure, the information's there. Implicit, we have to look behind the meaning, okay? Or look for the meaning. All right, so now last page, page 27. All right, so the first part, right? Very easy. I think I don't need to do one with you. This is just multiple choice, right? Which ones are the correct answers? Same as the other multiple choices. Same as this one, part 5 from the previous page. So I'll give this to you as homework. It'll take less than 30 seconds, right? You just read and then you choose multiple choice. Very easy. So we will do part 8 and part 9. I'll do parts with you and then you go home and do the writing exercise. This is important because this is writing, okay? You have to test out your skills. All right, so now read the letter and circle the sentences that best fit, okay? I will not write the whole sentence, just parts of it. So which one best fits? Let's read. So we can see that this is a sentence from Mark to his mom. So obviously this is maybe Mark, who is in jail, writing to his mother outside of jail, okay? I know it's been a week, but I've only just got the chance to sit down and write. I don't want you to worry too much, but as you can imagine, it's not much fun here. At least I know how bad it is and I can face it. Number 1. Before I got here, it was fear of the unknown as much as anything else. Or, since it's my 3rd time, nothing comes as a shock. What do you think? The way that he's writing this, right? Right, it is the first one, right? Before I got here. So you circle that part, right? That's the correct answer. Right, because he describes it as if he has never been there before, right? And it's only been a week. It's only been a week, right? All right, so number 2. The only good thing is that the judge only gave me 6 months. I'll never forget your face as I was led off, right? Brought somewhere else. And I will never let you look like that again, because she was sad, right? I'll be on my best behavior, do my time and learn anything they're willing to teach me. Then, number 2, then I'll be ready for a life of crime when I get out. That means he's gonna do some more crime when he gets out. Or, then I'll be out, ready to get a job and look after you for a change. Right, when he gets out, he will do some more crime or he will change to be a better person. What do you think? Right, it should be the second one, right? Then, Then I'll be out and then take care of the mom, right? So the second sentence. All right, third one, the last one, okay? My cellmate's a lad, a person, a boy, right, or a man, a lad from Ireland. If you can believe it. We get on well. That means they get along well. He tells me stories of Ireland that remind me of the ones he used to tell me. So the mom is from Ireland too. I'm teaching him to read and write a bit better. So we can okay, let's try to see the implicit meaning there. I'm teaching him to read and write a bit better. That means the friend that he has in prison, right? His cellmate cannot read or write well. That's why he's teaching, okay? So that's implicit. In return, he let me use his camera, so I've sent you a picture of where I'm staying. Number 3, I'm on the top one and he's on the bottom, or that's the entrance where you'll come in and when you visit. What do you think? They're in their cell, right? They're in their cell. Can you freely use the camera all around the prison? No, right? Because that is called, what's that word? Something that you cannot bring, okay? You cannot bring cameras, cell phones into prison. So you can only use them in your prison cell. You have to hide them, right? So it should be I'm on top and he's on the bottom bunk, right, of the bed. All right. So now that we see these correct sentences, right? Let's rewrite them, okay? Let's rewrite them into five sentences. All right, so maybe each paragraph you'll have 1 or 2, okay? So read the letter in exercise 8 and write 5 inferences we can make from it. Inferences means what can we get out from the implicit, right? Implicit meaning. So when we have implicit sentences, we have to infer the meaning. Infer. Hence we have inferences, right? Interpretations, our interpretations. right? But infer is a more higher degree. All right, so number 1, let's do 2 together. I will leave 3 for you guys. All right, so the first one, right? When I got here first, I was afraid. So what can we say? What can we say about that? When I got here first, I was afraid. Thank God it's only 6 months, right? I've only been here for a week. It's all new to me. What can we infer? What is the implicit that we can infer? Right? Mark has never been in prison. Right? Or we can write this down another way, right? It's his first time in prison, right? Any way you want. You're free to write down what you can infer. It's your own inference, okay? All right. All right, so what else can we say in paragraph 1? At least I know how bad it is. Before I got here, it was fear of the unknown. All right, what do you think? Right, you can say Mark was scared. And we learned this word, imprisonment, of being in prison, right? Or we can say he didn't like prison. And many, many more, right? So the other ones that you can think of, try to write them in 3, 4, and 5, right? I'll try to give you a example, right? So remember when I said that he has a cellmate from Ireland, right, who tells him stories, and they're very good friends now. I'm teaching him to read and write better. You can write down, Mark's cellmate can't read and write well. Okay, that's why he's trying to teach him how to read and write better. So there's a lot of implicit meaning, implicit information in the paragraph, in the letter. So you can find a lot, and then you can write them down in 3, 4, and 5. All right. So 3, 4, and 5. Homework. Okay, writing exercise. Now, if you have some time, try to write down some inferences, more inferences. Okay, you can find more inferences in page 25, the paragraph. Okay, and also in page 24, the last part. Okay, lots of inferences. Okay, so that's it for today, everybody. So today we learned how to understand implications. Okay, the meaning implied or implying in a text. Okay, and we have to look for the meaning behind the sentences. All right. Okay, so this is your FCE class. We just did 8.5, so it should be book 4 and then lesson 5. Okay, so all the ones with lesson 5 on top. All right, so I wish that you can read more. All right, so you can practice some more, and I hope to see you next time. All right, bye bye.